Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It's really exciting to see you all. I'm Virginia Fernandez-Trapa. I'm Program Coordinator at the Sustainable Tourism and Resilience Department in the UN Tourism. And I'm honored to be the moderator of today's side event on regenerative tourism for resilience, policy, practice, and finance. So since we have a packed agenda, we will have a high-level opening, then we will have a panel discussion, and we are very numerous and with a lot of interesting perspectives. I will not lose any more time, and I have the honor to invite to deliver high-level remarks our dear host, His Excellency, the Honorable Mr. Charles Fernandez, Minister of Tourism in Antigua and Barbuda. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to recognize His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Tourism from Seychelles, the Honorable Sylvester Radegonde, correct? Thank you. And of course, other distinguished persons at the table. That's going to be difficult to mention that name. Zorista, I got that. I'm not sure about the other part of it.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, from the UN Tourism, WTO body. And we're really happy to be here this afternoon. And this is a very important topic. I can tell you, especially for Antigua and Barbuda, as one of the SIDS, and so dependent on tourism. Regenerative tourism for resilience, policy and practice, and finance. So my duty was to declare it open, but I figured it would be important to let you have an idea as to what we are facing in Antigua and Barbuda, and some of the things that we're working on. I can tell you that Antigua, I'm proud to say, we banned single-use plastic bags. We are the first to do that. We're working on a recycling plant for plastics, other plastics. We also banned styrofoam products. So we're doing our part in this little small, island. And I say small island, we are 170 square miles, as you would know, between Antigua and Barbuda. Yet we have an ocean footprint of over 42,000 square miles, which in effect means we are not really so much a small island developing state as a large ocean developing state. So that is important to note. We have also now working to link myself and a team at the Ministry of Tourism incentives to the whole aspect of what we can do in terms of prevention or preventative measures related to climate change. So, for example, the old traditional thing would be that you would, the level of incentives you get would depend on the level of investment and the number of persons that you would be employing. What we're doing now is adding or changing the model to reflect what kind of projects you'll be operating, which would be friendly to the environment, and what kind of operating methods you would have. But in addition to that, we're also going to we're in the process of strengthening the Ministry of Tourism to ensure that we'll have a stronger presence from the Department of the Environment, where we need not just to look going forward, but to look going back. So we have had some hotel properties in operation now for 20, 30 years. And some of the things that we are now putting in place may not have been done then. And these are important. For example, we want to ensure what kind of power usage you have, whether it's we can get the best in terms of whether it's AC units and so on. Not only that, we also would need to know what kind of pesticides you're using because they run off into the sea. We would need to know all these things that are important in terms of safeguarding our marine areas, because most, if not all, of our hotel projects are on the coastline. And as a result of that, we realize the importance of mangroves, which actually sequester maybe 3-4 times as much as a tree on the land. And then you have, of course, that doesn't negate the fact that it also protects the coastline, and it's also important for fish that are breeding, even our lobsters and so on. So that is important. And what is also something that we find disturbing is that a lot of our reefs are being destroyed. And the main reason for that is the warming of the ocean. We don't do hardly anything to create the ocean getting warmer. but we are the ones that are suffering the most because small island developing states have the majority of coral, and we depend on that to protect our beaches, to protect our islands against storm surge and so on. So again, it is something that we have a difficulty with, but we are hoping that we'll be able to go through it. We are also working to see how we can collect data. In other words, how many reefs we actually have, how many have damaged. Our seagrass. Our seagrass is very important. For those of you that might know it, an acre of seagrass contains or controls 35 times as much carbon as the same acre in the Amazon. So that shows you how important this is to not just us, but the entire world. So I just wanted to say that this is a very important topic being discussed today. And I also I'm pleased to announce that at the end of the session, we will be signing the Glasgow Declaration, which is a voluntary commitment to advance climate action in tourism. So Antigua and Barbuda will be signing that. That again shows our commitment to the whole aspect of protecting our environment, our climate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Excellency, for your vision, and we are certainly thrilled to have Antigua and Barbuda joining as a new signatory of the Glasgow Declaration. The Glasgow Declaration is providing the framework for this event to happen, as the regeneration is one of its pathways. We will hear more about it, but let me continue with the opening remarks. I'm now inviting His Excellency Mr. Silvestre Raguedon, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Tourism of the Seychelles. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Honorable Charles Fernandez, Minister for Tourism and Investment, I'm told. Yes. Antigua and Barbuda.
You're told right.
There's Aritza, Executive Director of UN Tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here today, to be with you and given the opportunity to discuss a topic of great importance for small island nations, regenerative tourism. This concept not only focuses on preserving our heritage for future generations, but also on restoring it to its former glory. Small island states hold a unique and crucial role in the global tourism landscape. We boast some of the world's most breathtaking natural wonders, yet we face significant challenges in preserving these treasures for future generations. Regenerative tourism presents a way forward, moving beyond traditional growth metrics to emphasize a holistic approach that equally values social and environmental well-being. This is especially crucial for island states, where unsustainable tourism growth can jeopardize the long-term sustainability of our islands. In Seychelles, we are committed to a strategy of higher value, lower impact tourism. And I do not, no excuses for that. We're very strict on it. This approach redefines the interaction between tourism and our communities, prioritizing the needs of the people. We are determined for the Seychellois to take ownership of the tourism industry, ensuring that it remains sustainable and community-driven. Our new Sustainable Development Tourism Policy Framework, which is being finalized, emphasizing community-led tourism, measuring success by the benefits to livelihoods, the local economy, and the overall national well-being, rather than visitor numbers. The true success of tourism lies in its positive impact on our communities and environment. We have conducted carrying capacity studies on 3 of our main islands. Seychelles is made up of 115 islands. We have an exclusive economic zone of 1.3 million square kilometers. So of these 115 islands, we have about 40 of them open to tourism. 3 main ones we've carried out a carrying capacity study. Managing room inventory to ensure sustainable tourism development. On one of the islands, we're very strict. Sustainable criteria guide tourism reopening, and we've just announced certain measures last week, actually, where we're really going to limit the number of not only hotel construction, but of new rooms coming on the market on La Digue.
I know that, I follow.
You follow. Very, very, very strict. And ladies and gentlemen, in Seychelles, we're moving very soon to announce a cap generally on the number of visitors that Seychelles will receive every year. The country depends on tourism, but as I've said before, we're conscious that unless we're careful, we're going to destroy that very industry that provides a livelihood to the people. And I say that you will need to deserve to come to Seychelles. Seychelles is acutely aware that one of our main selling points is our environment. As a proponent of the blue economy, we are committed to using tourism as a driver for ecological transformation, restoration, and recovery, especially in biodiversity. Our initiatives range from coral reef restoration to innovative financing mechanisms for marine conservation. By leading these efforts, Seychelles demonstrates that economic progress and environmental sustainability can coexist. In recent years, enhancing conservation partnerships has been key. Through innovative financing mechanisms like debt swaps, we have achieved 30% marine protection of our 1.3 million square kilometers of EEZ. Additionally, blue bonds empower the local economy while alleviating fiscal constraints on small island developing states. However, the journey towards regenerative tourism is not without its challenges. It requires courage, collaboration, and determination. We must transcend narrow self-interest and embrace a collective vision for a better future. It calls on each of us to be agents of change, to champion bold ideas, forge new partnerships, and inspire others to join us on this transformative journey. As we chart the course forward, let us always bear in mind that regenerative tourism represents not just a strategy, but a profound commitment to creating a sustainable future for our islands. By embracing this approach, we prioritize the well-being of our communities and the preservation of our natural heritage, and also hope for our planet. Let us move forward with determination and collaboration, ensuring that our efforts today will allow future generations to inherit a world that is thriving, beautiful, and peaceful. Together, we can make regenerative tourism the cornerstone of a more sustainable and prosperous future for us all. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for your inspiring words and also for sharing with us so openly on those difficult decisions, I would say, but important ones. I now have the pleasure to invite our Executive Director, UN Tourism Executive Director, Ms. Zorica Urošević, to deliver her opening remarks. Dear Zorica.
Thank you, Virginia. You are very instrumental of making us all together think and co-create. Let me thank you, Honorable Charles Fernandez, for welcoming us in your beautiful country. Thank you, Mr. Sylvestre Radegonde. I have to admit that I have spent 12 years in the Seychelles and I've been granted a citizenship, and I feel a sister. So this very moment today, sorry, sir, I forgot to greet you. You are the Honorable Patrice Gambis, Minister Plenipotentiary of Saint-Martin. And other distinguished guests, sorry if I don't say your name, but very happy to have you here. I think that we are at the standpoint of a big change because we know that for small island states, tourism is a mainstay. And I said it earlier in the plenary, it represents 30 to 85% of exports, meaning that it is a huge generator of income. And therefore, it is as well a huge generator of employment and livelihoods. However, we see as well there is a contrast between the income and what is retained because we have only between 11 to 15% of GDP that is related to tourism. So there is there an element, an important lesson to be learned in the fact that we need to adopt more circular business models, which are going not only to reduce the leakages and increase the productive capacity and retain the value added, such as food, creative industry, and others, but not limited to, because today we know as well that for tourism operations, we need water, we need energy, and we need to manage waste. So creating new sources of energy which are not dependent on fossil fuels, renewable energy are going as well to be reducing the leakages and retaining more wealth and really putting the GDP at the exponential that is more aligned with exports. We know as well that ocean and nations, how I call them, and you said it both, represent 30% of the ocean in the world. And the people of islands are the guardians of these oceans. So they need to be as well treated as such. I mean, we have UNESCO World Heritage Sites and everybody is vested by the mission of preserving, but who is caring about these guardians of the oceans, which are islanders? So I think that regeneration, and you said it both of you, I think that needs to consider not only the planet, but needs as well to consider communities and the people. And this is where we are. Now, on the last point, and I think that we were discussing with Virginia, we discussed a lot and sometimes very late, because we try to rebuild the world with other people and hopefully with you. I think that we need a real definition for regenerative tourism. It doesn't exist yet, so we are happy to take up this encounter here in Antigua as a first step towards that, and we will be inviting you all to continue that conversation. But I think there is one element of great importance which both of you touched upon, and I think you, Minister Redegond, you mentioned about innovative financing. Seychelles has been in 2018 one of the first countries to issue blue bonds. You have a NATO swap, you have quite a good practice, I can say, of this innovative mechanism, but still it's not enough. And you said it, Minister Fernandez. We have an extraordinary opportunity to look at the lens of the blue carbon. Because as ocean nations, this is the gold, I can say, the resource that we all have, but which for today is not transformed in, is not tokenized, is not transformed in actionable and usable means. So I think that the beauty of this year, 2024, is that not only we have every 10 years the decade of sustainable tourism, a small island state, sorry, but it's a synonym. But we have as well the COP29, in which we are advancing on the Article 6 on regulating carbon markets. However, blue carbon is not yet there. So I urge your countries to push into that direction because green carbon is very well established, CDM mechanisms are very well established, and in the same time, we are in a year where we are the preparation on the NDCs, which are going to be issued in March. So we are really calling upon all our membership, all 160 member states, to lobby for tourism to be included in the NDCs, looking at the regulatory market and moving into the blue carbon. And Prime Minister yesterday said in the interactive dialogue, he was exactly speaking of that. I mean, it's written on my text, and he was speaking, and I say, I think when many people and many trends are aligning and converging. It is the right momentum. So I think that we are in the right momentum, and I think maybe the Center of Excellence that is going to be hosted here in Antigua could be really the laboratory for that future. So I will not continue longer. I think that everybody has extraordinary things to say. I welcome you all and look forward for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Urošević, for your inspiring remarks and also your constant support. Please, Excellencies, stay at the table just for 5 more minutes because we're going to have a keynote, and our esteemed colleague Mayra Santaella, I'm going to invite her to join you to the table so that we complete the opening segment with a bit of technical content, which is important for us in tourism. We're not versed on climate action. So we have Mayra Santaella. She's the regional lead for the Regional Collaboration Center for the Caribbean. Welcome, Mayra. You can sit beside Zorica. And Mayra is going to help us understand better what do we mean with integrated mitigation and adaptation approaches, which is actually what is proposed by the Glasgow Declaration. Some people perceive it as a mitigation framework. It isn't. It isn't only a mitigation framework. It aims to achieve balance between mitigation and adaptation. But I'll stop here. I'll let Mayra share with us from UNFCCC how they see it. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Good afternoon. Honorable Charles, Sylvester. It was great to meet you today. Ministers, excellencies, delegates, and members of the audience. Zorica and Virginia, many thanks for the invitation. My name is Mayra Santaella, and I'm leading the Regional Collaboration Center for the Caribbean under the UNFCCC, based in the beautiful island of Grenada in St. George's. I'm privileged to be here representing the UN Climate Change and delivering the keynote address for the side event this afternoon. We can all agree that tourism is an essential and important sector for small island development states. Hundreds of thousands of SIDS residents rely on it, and their livelihoods and the economies of the states are closely linked to the sector. At the same time, these are the same countries that are vulnerable to climate change, sitting on the front lines and grappling with rising level seas, extreme weather events, and other similar impacts. SIDS often take huge hits due directly to the impacts of climate change. It is for this reason why the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism is extremely important. It is the only global initiative on climate change and tourism and promotes the need to accelerate climate action in the tourism and to secure strong commitments to support the global goals to halve emissions over the next decade and reach net zero emissions as soon as possible before 2050. As we are in this decisive decade, the importance of action to reduce emissions from all sectors, including tourism, is key. Countries globally are now preparing their new nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and are expected to communicate this to the UNFCCC by 2025. The recent COP28 decisions urge countries to accelerate their efforts to produce ambitious, economy-wide emission reduction targets, covering all greenhouse gas emissions, sectors and categories, and aligns with limiting global heating to 1.5 degrees, as informed by the latest science in light of different national circumstances. SIDS are encouraged to integrate tourism into the national determined contributions and to support mitigation actions in areas such as resource efficiency, sustainable mobility, waste management, among others. By decreasing the GHG emissions from the sector, this will ultimately contribute to achieving the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. It is important not to forget that we hope to achieve the 1.5, but this also means the adaptation and resilient action will also be needed. From sea level rise to floods and droughts, all can negatively impact the tourism sector. We heard how SIDS are vulnerable to climate change and require supporting resilience building, adaptation, and disaster response. Therefore, side events like this is important to ensure continued dialogue between national governments and actors from the sector. Through cooperation and collaboration, these actors can come together and develop a roadmap of climate action needed for SIDS to achieve this, particularly ensuring that policies are in place to support actions by business, investors, cities, civil societies, and others. I look forward to engaging discussions from the panelists and hearing how integrated approach of mitigation adaptation will support the tourism ecosystem and destinations in building resilience to climate risks and enabling a transition towards regenerative and circular approaches. The UNFCCC stands ready to support this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayra. It's great to have UNFCCC support. Appreciate it, and looking forward to going on this journey together. So now we're finishing the opening segment, so we're going to do a swap, not a nature swap, but a speaker swap. So please, if you may, those of you who are in the panel, now join the head table. And you are also on the panel, so you can stay. Yeah, you said so. I mean, I don't know. Sorry, just parenthesis. So please join the head table, those of you who are in the panel. And Minister, we have some reserved seats. Minister Fernandez, you can sit here. Soritza, we have reserved seats here. So the swap is completed. Thanks for your patience, and thank you everyone for accepting to be in this numerous panel with a lot of perspectives and different kinds of stakeholders. So just a reminder to the colleagues, the microphones are not amplifying the voice, but it's important that you speak to the mic because we're recording the sound. So when you speak, please find a mic and use it. We even had more panelists than this. Can you imagine? But in the end, they couldn't come. But I just want to acknowledge, for example, His Honorable Minister Chester Cooper, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of the Bahamas, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism of the Bahamas. He sent us a video contribution.
It is a privilege to bring you greetings from the Bahamas as we begin what is expected to be an exciting and informative discourse over the next 4 days. The government of the Bahamas continues to chart the course towards resilient prosperity by implementing initiatives to balance economic growth with environmental protection and social responsibility in our tourism sector. In November 2023, we launched the Mission of the Mangroves Ecotourism Initiative, a unique project on the island of Grand Bahama. This pioneering initiative involves 12 environmental stewards who conduct educational tours about the mangroves. A key feature of the mangroves tour is the mangrove replenishment, where tour participants can actively contribute to the environment by planting mangroves and tracking their development over time. Last year, the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism launched the Andros Community-Based Project. The Community-Based Tourism Cluster Initiative is the first ever destination cluster in the region. The project seeks to unlock the untapped potential of the island of Andros by enhancing the proven community tourism niches of birding, flat fishing, and the like, while preserving from deterioration and denigration the natural resources and cultural and social fabric of these communities. Additionally, the Ministry of Tourism partnered with the Perry Institute for Marine Science on the Coral is Calling campaign, which is dedicated to improving coral reefs by restoring corals and other species that will build coral reef resilience. The industry becomes more resilient as local and community-driven tourism entrepreneurs benefit directly and indirectly from visitor expenditure, reducing revenue leakage. The diversity of activities provide a more dynamic environment, and immersive visitor experience. As a small island developing state, the Bahamas is committed to global fight against climate change on all fronts. For us, sustainable tourism is not just our business, it is our way of life. On behalf of the government of the Bahamas and its people and tourism stakeholders, I look forward to a successful meeting.
Here, a thanks for Honorable Minister Chester Cooper. And now I'm going to hand over to another minister, His Excellency, Mr. Patrice Gums. He's the Minister Plenipotentiary of Saint Martin. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining, Excellency. We have been hearing the opening remarks, how everyone is inspired about regenerative tourism. Can you tell us how can policies support actually this transition towards regenerative tourism, and what key elements would you include in there?
Yes, thank you. Just let me say before I get started, unfortunately, while I know that these exchanges are about exchanging ideas, unfortunately, as soon as I finish speaking, I do have to leave. So I want to apologize to everyone on behalf of myself. Of course, your contributions I value, but unfortunately, the quite busy schedule means that we go from one thing to the next oftentimes. So I'll be very quick. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates and distinguished guests, thank you for allowing me to speak today on the very important topic of tourism for resilience. I'm honored to represent St. Martin, a beautiful Caribbean island known for its natural beauty and vibrant culture. Today, we must discuss how we can reimagine tourism to ensure the sustainability and resilience of our communities. Regenerative tourism is more than just being sustainable. It's about restoring and rejuvenating our environment and our culture. For St. Martin, this means enhancing our beaches, landscape, and marine life. We are working on a tourism model that supports local economies, nurtures biodiversity, and strengthens our community against climate change and economic challenges. In 2023, November, we launched our new logo and rebranding strategy. This new look places an emphasis on what we consider to be important to us. Our environment, both land and sea, and wildlife are at the forefront. To achieve this, we need strong policies that promote eco-friendly practices. This includes using renewable energy, reducing waste, and conserving water, particularly in the tourism sector. St. Martin is already moving in this direction. We are enhancing marine protected areas and enforcing regulations to prevent habitat destruction. Said policies include the nature policy, the beach and vending policy, and the solid waste vision. As you can imagine, as a country that has sometimes double the population cruise ships, what we do with our waste is very important for our environment. These policies help preserve our environment and ensure tourism remains viable for future generations. And I actually want to echo the sentiments of my colleague minister from the Seychelles, where we say the irony of tourism is that we are actually destroying it to have it promoted and come to be seen. And that's the irony of this industry, really and truly. It allows us gently to remind visitors that also call St. Martin their second home, that they too need to play a part in ensuring our assets are truly protected for generations to come. In that regard, we have to have policies that address, find the balance between exploitation and preservation. Policies must lead to action. Our tourism operators, hoteliers, and businesses are key to this change. In St. Martin, more businesses are adopting green practices, like solar power and wastewater recycling, water and waste recycling. Community involvement is also crucial. This includes training locals in sustainable hospitality, promoting local products, and encouraging cultural exchanges. Regenerative tourism requires investment. We need funding models that support long-term environment and social benefits. This means using public and private funds, international aid, and new financial tools. St. Martin is seeking partnerships to fund projects that align with these key principles. By investing in ecotourism infrastructure, we can create a resilient tourism sector that benefits everyone. Regenerative tourism is essential for St. Martin and other cities. It offers a path to resilience, allowing our islands to thrive amidst global challenges. By aligning policy, practice, and finance towards regenerative goals, we can create a tourism industry that sustains and enriches our environment and our communities. Let us continue to do this Let us continue to commit to this journey. Together, we can make regenerative tourism the cornerstone of our resiliency strategy, securing a sustainable future for all SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for sharing your vision and well-interconnected policies with a systemic view, I would say. As you highlighted the waste, I was thinking about our Executives Director opening and the importance of circularity, how we see it as crucial for this transition. That could be an interesting takeaway of today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll stay in touch. Our next speaker is Ms. Dianil Taylor-Williams. She is Director in the Ministry of Tourism of St. Kitts. So also in Caribbean. We haven't traveled from the region. I mean, we haven't traveled to Seychelles and back, but we're staying in the Caribbean for a little while. Dianil, can you tell us how is St. Kitts advancing beyond mere sustainability? You're trying to enhance resilience and ensure long-term sustainability and thinking. How are you doing that?
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to begin by explaining that I am here representing St. Kitts rather than the country of St. Kitts Nevis. So I wanted to make that clear. Now, with respect to our advancement of sustainability, what we are doing, we are using a participatory approach in terms of developing our destination's climate action plan. And this is a plan that is being developed in collaboration with our stakeholders, including government agencies, the private sector companies, and local communities, as a means of ensuring that all voices are heard and the plan is tailored to the needs and priorities of the community within the destination. So just last year in December, we had a workshop which was mainly targeted at private sector companies, tourism enterprises, where we were looking at our climate action plan. Having done that, just over a month ago, we had a similar workshop, this time with mainly government agencies. So what we would have done, we would have heard from the private sector, and then we had the workshop with the public sector. We also included focus group sessions, we also had one-on-one meetings, and we also used the opportunity to collect data from all of our stakeholders so that that could be included in the climate action plan with respect to tourism. We believe that this approach will help to build ownership and commitment to the plan among our stakeholders, which would be critical for its success. Additionally, we had two initiatives that were initiated through our interagency group, and these are the Heart of St. Kitts Foundation and the Heart of St. Kitts Sustainability Charter. The first, which is the foundation, plays a crucial role in building capacity and generating awareness about climate resilience and sustainability in the tourism sector, as we use this as a travel philanthropy program where we raise funds towards community-type projects. The second, which is the Sustainability Charter, is an initiative where we encourage businesses to adopt sustainable practices and reduce their environmental impact. These will be used to continue to educate and raise awareness about the importance of climate resilience and sustainability to our visitors as well, where we would be promoting responsible travel practices through collateral material that we have developed out of the workshops that we initiated. Presently, we are undertaking a vulnerability assessment in the destination, and of this, one of the key sectors identified for the vulnerability assessment is the tourism sector. Now, one of the things that we have noted is that our last tourism strategy would have ended 2019-2020, and our plans to revise the tourism strategy showed us that there was a need for us to incorporate climate action into the strategy. The the latest version, although climate is mentioned and it is a part of it, intrinsically is not extrinsic. And so what we have decided is that for our next strategy and action plan, climate must play an integral role. And so we are awaiting the results of the vulnerability assessment to incorporate the results of that, as well as our climate action plan, into the new tourism strategy and action plan. We are also looking at having a comprehensive approach to sustainable tourism development, which would include strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improving waste management, which was identified as a major threat, and promoting community-based tourism initiatives with heritage and heritage preservation as the focus. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dianil. Super interesting. I have to say that we're also thrilled you're signing the Glasgow Declaration. You forgot an important detail. We're really eager.
It is very important.
We're really eager to welcome you on board, because what you were describing is just exactly what the Glasgow Declaration is trying to support for a Ministry of Tourism. So it's a voluntary commitment, and we do ask the signatories to develop a climate action plan, right? 1 year after they have signed, they have to submit a climate action plan, which is a bit different depending on who they are, because it's not the same climate action plan of a Ministry of Tourism than the climate plan of an NGO. But every effort counts, so we welcome every kind of signatories. Now, when ministries of tourism sign, we always have these discussions like, what does it entail for me? What do I have to do? Because of course it's out of the traditional mandate of a Ministry of Tourism. So we gotta analyze the issue. And it's just reassuring to hear you speak, because at the end of the day, what Glasgow wants to do is to help ministries of tourism integrate climate action elements into the tourism policy, whether that happens directly because you happen to be renewing your policy at that time, or whether that happens when the policy cycle is coming to the end, because you have your document, your action plan for climate that you can seamlessly integrate into the tourism policy. So thanks for also giving me the chance to explain to the colleagues a little bit, the thinking behind the declaration. Let's move now to our next speaker, Mr. Christopher Cocker, CEO of the Pacific Tourism Organization. I told you we were going to be traveling around the world. So, sir, could you just, in a couple lines, introduce the Pacific Tourism Organization, just in case we have colleagues in the room that don't know about your organization, and then I'll give you the question.
Yeah, warm Pacific greetings, and thank you, UN Tourism, for organizing and also the opportunity. But also, I just look around and we're overtaken by the Caribbean, so I have to do my pitch that the most beautiful part in the world is the Pacific Islands. There's 20 islands of ours under the Pacific Tourism Organization. It ranges from Easter Island in the east right up to the Republic of Marshall Islands in the north, down to Timor-Leste in the west, and to the Kingdom of Tonga in the south. So there's a lot of us in this case. But to cut a long story short, regenerative tourism happened when COVID happened to us. We needed to transform, to pivot and change the way we were doing things in this case. So we developed 3 core strategies, which was a 5-year digital strategy for transforming of our industry in digitalization, and also a 10-year Pacific tourism statistics strategy, recognizing how important data is and for informed decision-making and planning in this case. And finally, our Pacific Tourism Policy Framework, which is a 10-year policy framework. And this was endorsed by our Council of Ministers in October 2021. So 2021 was a key year for us, because in November, we signed the Glasgow Declaration with one of our member countries. So not only did we sign something on a regional basis, but we had to do something as well on a global to show our support and commitment to sustainable and regenerative tourism in this case. But our Pacific Sustainable Tourism Policy Framework resulted with 19 of our member countries signing up to for commitment for regenerative and also sustainable sustainable tourism. So 19 out of our 20 member countries have signed. There are 4 pillars. One is prosperous economies, and we've launched a Pacific Tourism's sustainable standards for that. The second pillar is thriving and inclusive communities. We're still working on that, but we did repurposing plastic workshops throughout all our member countries, turning trash into cash, in this case, using plastic to make jewelry and other things like homeware stuff in this case. With our pillar on culture, which is visible and valued cultures, we launched in May this year our first specific guidelines, cultural guidelines for all our member countries to be used in this case. And finally, we have the last pillar, which is healthy oceans and islands, and we are working with SPRIP, which is a regional environmental organization, to launch our marine guidelines for the Pacific, as well as environmental guidelines in this case. But when you look at all these pillars, all of them have been impacted by climate change in this case, whether it's economic, culture, or even our communities, as well as our, in terms of our communities, as well as our valued cultures and oceans and islands in this case. But I think that it is vital that we take action to mitigate and also adapt to these climate change impacts, hence why we've signed up for the Glasgow Declaration in this case. And I think I'll stop there because I'm sure I'm going to answer some of the questions for question 1 that you're going to raise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'd just like maybe to dwell a little bit on the local communities aspect, you know, because it's good to bring people on board. People should be at the core of what we do, people and planet, but planet without people, well. So are they benefiting from climate action initiatives? Are you engaging them in some of the rollout of these frameworks?
Definitely from our side, because there's now integration with existing measures that they have in this case. So when you have climate resilience in the Pacific, it involves the whole nation itself and also the whole community in this case, because of the way we do things, we do it all together in this case. Information sharing, and especially in the indigenous knowledge, is being used in this case, particularly in our communities. And of course, not only they're looking at the causes and impacts of climate change, but are participating in targeted programs to celebrate as well as utilize traditional knowledge. Also, leadership and adaptation, local communities are taking the forefront in this case in moving forward. And also community leadership from this case. Communities in the Pacific are taking charge, and then our development partners are providing the support, whether it's financing or mobilizing resources.
Thank you, Mr. Cocker. I like very much that point you made of communities taking leadership on adaptation, definitely crucial. And I also had a thought when you were mentioning that you also need to mitigate, because, I mean, we look at SIDS, and I think it was Excellency Fernandez and also Excellency Raguedon that you were saying we're not responsible for the emissions, we're actually paying the price. Our temperature of the seawater is rising, but it's not because we did anything. So that connects with the message that Mayra was transporting. Mayra from UNFCCC was telling us the NDCs are being renewed. We need to mention tourism in the NDCs. We need to mention tourism from the adaptation point of view. Certainly, I don't think any SIDS would object to that. But we also need to mention tourism from the point of view of mitigation, so that we can actually access all the support that is going to be unlocked to implement the NDCs. So thank you, Mr. Cocker, for bringing the dual approach to our discussion. And I'll now move on to another regional tourism organization, Caribbean Tourism Organization, back to the Caribbean. So Amanda Charles, she's a Sustainable Tourism Specialist in CTO. Amanda, could you introduce briefly CTO, although I think probably you are very well known. And I'm curious to continue a bit on the people approach. How are you dealing with disaster risk management? I mean, do you, as part of your support to your members, do you provide them with support on disaster risk management? Because communities are the most affected by these extreme weather events, besides the tourism sector, obviously, but what are you doing? How are you approaching this?
So thank you very much, and thank you for inviting the Caribbean Tourism Organization to be part of this very important dialogue. We represent 25 member governments across the Caribbean region, English, French, Spanish, and Dutch speaking in our beautiful Caribbean corner of the world. And certainly we have a number of private sector partners as well that comprise the Caribbean Tourism Organization. So we work closely with the governments. We receive mandates actually from our government members. And one of the pioneering initiatives has been the development of a Caribbean Sustainable Tourism Policy and Development Framework. So we had a previous policy framework from 1989 up to 2000, and we have 2020, sorry, and we have now developed a new policy framework to guide tourism development from 2020 to 2030. And in that context, in the area of disaster risk management, the Caribbean faces an annual Atlantic hurricane season. So I really think that, resilience is in our DNA. And certainly CTO works with our member countries, both in terms of the PR councils of our various member governments, because crisis communication has been one of our key challenges. And if we think of 2017, when so many countries in the Caribbean were impacted by hurricanes, Irma, Jose, and Maria, and we had persons from, Barbuda. We had a lot of devastation in Barbuda, but we had visitors canceling vacations to Barbados. And exactly. And that is because of a lack of understanding of the geography of the Caribbean. So in that context, we recognize the need to really work together to send a message informing persons about the geography, right? It's not just one landmass, it's several, different islands. Just the Bahamas has 700 islands. And so we do a lot of work, working with our member countries across the disaster risk management continuum, preparedness, response, recovery, and certainly mitigation. And a number of tools and resources are available, including resources for online training.
Thank you very much, Amanda. You have to tell us where to find those resources so we can also help you promote them. CTO is another signatory of the Glasgow Declaration. We're happy to have you on board. Minister Regenerative, I'm coming back to you, talking about guidelines. I know that you were quite pioneering because your ministry issued a guidance for hoteliers on climate change, was 2020 or even earlier? What results did that produce? Can you share some?
Well, the result is that we've adopted through this guideline, basically, just for information, we have over 700 licensed tourism establishments in Seychelles. What we've wanted to do is guide them, given them a booklet, basically, on how we would want them to incorporate in their
daily activities anything to do with environment protection, climate, and so on. I'm pleased to say that today we have over 60% of tourism establishments that are actually following that. It is a voluntary program. We recognize them. In fact, we have a big ceremony in a couple of months to officially recognize them, give them a certificate, and give them a tap on the back, for the work that they're doing. Basically, 5 themes that we're focusing on: waste management, energy efficiency, water management, conservation, and community involvement. Very important. So as I say, this is a voluntary program, but going forward, what we've done, we are also in the process of reviewing the classification of hotels in Seychelles. Over the years, everybody has decided how many stars they should give themselves. You have all manner of, everybody wants 5-star, obviously, but this is not on. So we've decided as from this year to seriously inspect the hotels. We have a special team to be able to assess what number of stars they want. And I must say, climate change, everything to do with the list of themes that I've given now, will be considered in the classification of the hotel. 10% of the overall points that they will get will be based on these criteria. So the carrot is, it's free. I mean, it's voluntary. But the stick is that if you want, especially the large hotels, you want to be given a star or a couple of stars, you will have to follow and give us proof that you're actually implementing all these themes that we've talked about. So overall, personally, I'm happy. Over 60% of the establishments are voluntarily following it. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Incentives are indeed very important to trigger change, and ministries of tourism can certainly use this policy instrument to trigger change. I think, Minister, you're perfectly fit to sign Glasgow, but... So one element that I missed, though, I know it's included, but not highlighted maybe, if you allow me the recommendation, is food. Food is crucial for the transformation. And here I'm shifting now to our colleague, Mr. Jost Neumann. I never asked you if it was British pronunciation or German.
Neumann, oh, yeah.
Neumann. Sorry for that. Director of Programs in TUI Care Foundation. Can you introduce TUI Care Foundation for the colleagues? And then my question to you is on food, because I know you truly believe that sustainable agriculture and food play a very important role in our sector. So I'm wanting to understand, or for the colleagues to understand a bit better, your perspective, and if you can give us an example, it would be great.
Fantastic.
Floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm very delighted to be here. Your Excellencies, distinguished fellow speakers, all the guests listening right now, I'm really, really grateful to be here and to be able to speak to you today. TUI Care Foundation is a philanthropic funder. It is an impact investor and grant maker based out of the Netherlands, and has been founded upon the initiative of TUI Group in 2016. And it's connected to the TUI Group, which is a large tourism corporation based out of Hanover, Germany. So I'm really grateful for the framing, but before I go into the food question, I just want to encourage everybody, since we're here at SIDS4 and forging alliances and partnerships is really at the core of this conference. Please speak to me. We are looking to grow our portfolio of grants and impact investments here in SIDS, specifically in the Caribbean. So if you're contemplating to leave the room because it's too hot, do not stay here. Come to me and let's have a good chat, because we are definitely interested to invest in regenerative tourism, specifically in tourism destinations, and we want to make change happen. Now, 22% of the global emissions are coming from agriculture. I'm sure many of you already know that. So conventional agriculture has destroyed a lot of biodiversity over the last decades and the last century. It has not only destroyed a lot of biodiversity, it also has destroyed a lot of assets of communities, which is soil, which is land. And that is a huge challenge. And I think the minister has mentioned it, with pesticides flowing into the sea. And I think sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture is really an interesting and very important topic to talk about, because tourism plays a significant role in advancing sustainable agriculture and specifically regenerative agriculture. TUI Care Foundation has a framework of programming that we have decided to put in place until 2030 that is really designed around regeneration. And regenerative agriculture is a cornerstone of that programmatic framework. It's called the TUI Field to Fork program that we are implementing, and we have been investing in specifically regenerative agriculture since 2018. And that's very important, because there's a difference between sustainable agriculture and regenerative agriculture. There's a difference between sustainability and regeneration. It is already in the name, and I think it's very inspiring to think about it, and that's why I'm super grateful that UNWTO is making up that mental model and that framing here today, because it's not about sustaining the status quo, right? We all agree on that. We cannot sustain the status quo. We need to make significant strides to move onward and improve and regenerate what has been lost. And I think that's the beautiful mental model that has been opened up, and that regenerative agriculture actually has been quite advancing already for many years, and they have already advanced certifications, and there's a whole global community dedicated to restoring biodiversity while producing food. And I think that's a very inspirational model. So TUI Care Foundation, through this program, the Field to Fork program, has been investing in thousands of hectares that have been regenerated, from Greece to Portugal to Cabo Verde, Kenya, and other geographies, into regeneration through syntropic farming, agroforestry, regenerative farming. So there's many different schools of thought in the agriculture community, and I think that is an interesting a point that Sarita mentioned, that we need to define, that we need to advance and actually think about what does that mean, because there's no doubt that regeneration is moving people, it's actually inspiring people, and we all might agree that sustainability is we have heard it a lot. People are to some extent and not as inspired by the framing of sustainability anymore. So in a nutshell, speaking quickly about tourism, sorry, I might take too long, I'm moving faster. We have been finding ways to use tourism as really a driver for regenerative agriculture by connecting farmers to hotels, by providing technical assistance for these farmers to produce regeneratively, but also giving them the market. And regenerative products are potentially more expensive, and the tourism sector can actually create a demand locally for regenerative and organic products. We have been training staff in hotels on gastronomic heritage and regenerative products that were created. We have been creating tastings that were led by farmers, which is really, really interesting and important, because the guests were very excited about speaking to rural communities in hotels. It was, by the way, the first time many of those farmers set a foot into hotels, which was very inspiring for them as well. We have been creating agro experiences whereby you bring people and visitors to rural communities. We have been talking about community-led tourism, community-based tourism today. It's very important. And also we have been creating regenerative demonstration farms that really show how restoring biodiversity and production of food can go together. In a nutshell, what was one really important finding, that rural communities have felt seen, they have felt heard, and they have felt valued through regenerative agriculture and through tourism, because people come and see and look what they do. And of course it creates additional revenue streams when people go directly to the farm. So it's not only about farm to fork, it's also about fork to farm, to bring people where the actual production takes place. So my pledge would be to look at regenerative agriculture and the certification that they have created, because it can inspire the tourism community, since there is already progress that has been made. To apply it to tourism, let's define it, let's potentially in the future certify it, who knows. There's a whole new range of opportunities, because as I said, sustainability is not enough. We need to do more, we need to repair what was lost, we need to regenerate, and TUI Care Foundation will exactly do that. Thank you so much, and please come and speak to me for partnerships.
Thank you. Thank you, Jost, for the important point on food. Actually, even the climate negotiations are now more and more linked to sustainable food systems. So let's follow suit and use also food, very important in tourism, gastronomy, as a tool for climate action and for community resilience. Thanks also for starting to speak about money, because that's the next item of the discussion, finance. You know, the title of the event is Policy, Practice and Finance. We've heard about amazing policies from the colleagues, examples of practices, and now I'm moving into finance. So I would like to invite you, Paloma, Ms. Paloma Zapata. She's the CEO of Sustainable Travel International. So please use one or two sentences to introduce your organization. But what I wanted to ask you is, like, what innovative financial mechanisms you think that can be implemented to to promote regenerative travel. And can you let us know what your organization or how your organization is supporting, improving governance and, supporting transition to carbon neutrality?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the UN Tourism and for the island of Antigua and Barbuda. For the opportunity to be here and to represent the third sector in this really important dialogue. So Sustainable Travel International, we are a social enterprise. Our beginnings were a nonprofit organization. In the last 20 years, we've supported the tourism industry in their transition, in understanding how to become more responsible tourism initiatives and implementing the right policies in place. I am very honored to have worked with about half of the people in this table, or at least the different island nations, because we really have focused on supporting the most vulnerable and most iconic destinations across the world. So what we're doing now, so for example, we're supporting St. Kitts in their climate action plan, and what's really important here, besides doing the carbon measurement, which is really key to understanding what is the destination's carbon footprinting exercise, so that they can actually build targets that are science-based targets to reduce these type of carbon emissions. Another really important approach, which Daniel already mentioned, is the collaborative participatory planning approach. Really important to include the communities, to include the private sector, to include other government agencies in the policy and planning to promote social justice, adaptation, and of course the transition to decarbonize the industry. I think the collaborative approach is very important, especially if we join regionally. It's important to be able to have a stronger voice when you work regionally, for example, with the Caribbean islands. So what are the work within the climate action planning that we're working on, which is, leading again, to finance, is the regeneration portion of it, which is important. And sometimes some of these plans, really lack focus of it. I'm really happy to have heard that mangroves is part of the agenda in a lot of these islands. It's a vital ecosystem. The whole blue carbon ecosystems, it can sequester 10 times more carbon than forests, which was already, mentioned before. So designating these ecosystems are as vulnerable, as important for island economies is, again, a key for the longevity of the tourism industry. And as far as financial mechanisms, we at Sustainable Travel International, besides supporting the Climate Action Plan, we aim to be a hub for regional conservation of mangrove ecosystems, so that we can channel support from corporate tourism businesses, international businesses, to be able to channel funds to these particular organizations, to also raise awareness. We want the tourism sector to be more responsible, more proactive, and be more impact investors, to reduce the damage that they're doing traditionally to the coastal ecosystems, and generate awareness, and work with communities as well. Important to work with fisheries and work with communities as well. And finally, the beginning will be to start with channeling funds to protect these ecosystems, and ultimately to bring them to be part of the voluntary carbon markets, because these ecosystems, again, and mangrove restoration is an important methodology in the voluntary carbon market, and therefore, if we work in a regional sense, then we can bring these to become available, and then actually channel more funds into the support of these ecosystems.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paloma, for bringing that focus on blue carbon to the table. I have the pleasure to have with us Frédéric Deguerre. He's the CEO of NOAA Regen, and basically you are working right on blue carbon, isn't it, Fred? So I'm really curious if you can share with the colleagues, besides introducing NOAA briefly, please, building on what Paloma just said also, why is blue carbon, a key player to funding the transition? Because we can think about implementing many things. If there's no finance, it's going to be challenging. So how can blue carbon finance or support financing the transition in SIDS, and I guess we hope fast track that opportunity?
Okay. So thanks for giving me the floor.
Dear Excellencies, Minister, Ambassadors, thank you to be here on that journey. Thanks for UN Tourism to organize this very valuable event, and for the initiative of the Glasgow Declaration. By the way, Noah has signed it and complete all of the requirements now. So yes, let's talk about finance. This is clear, finance is key here. How to fund SIDS at scale that we need to mobilize also the private sector. There is a need to develop a 360 multi-layer bulletproof de-risking ecosystem. Without de-risking, we're never going to get the $1 trillion that the private sector can put in. So de-risking is first loss investment. It's also blended finance, it's PPP, and it's UN arbitration. So it is clear that we are not expecting SIDS to put the money on the table for that first loss at scale. So here comes the opportunity of the blue carbon. So blue carbon is not a debt, it's not equity, it's a new revenue sources for those island states, which is more important than the green carbon most of the time. So properly structured, the blue carbon can even become a super credit and reach very high value. There is some example with Japan, who's been selling blue carbon at above $1,300 per tons, which makes the interest raise again. So for this to happen rapidly and with efficiency, what do we need is a global blue carbon market, a one-stop shop, a new ecosystem that bring standardized frameworks, standardized science-based metrics and data, best practices, but more than this, we need robust decentralized governance. I'm talking about a DAO, blockchain traceability and transparency, blended financial leverage to that credit, and protocols to make those funds properly reinvested in the circular economies of the transition of those island states, benefiting local communities. And last but not least, we need to go beyond carbon measurements and go auditing and scoring the side benefits, the SDGs, to make it raise in value, raise in interest, and to gain trust into the market and selling it at scale with a high value. So this is basically the DNA of what we're looking to achieve with a global blue carbon market. And I'm very happy to tell that part of the journey has already been rich. We've been jointly with UN Tourism and NOAA Region launching an ecosystem called Replanet Ecosystem. We launched it the 14th of November at the UN headquarters in Geneva to start showing that the ecosystem is ready to be implemented or almost ready to be implemented. So Replanet Ecosystem consists on a global blue carbon platform, a blended financial platform, including a UN Net Zero facility, again led by UNWTO, and a digital platform with a DAO robust governance, so that we invite SIDS to be part of that governance, to adopt such a platform which is almost ready to kick off, and to implement it into their nations, their NDCs, their national registries. With such a Replanet ecosystem and empowered by the governance of SIDS, we can make that blue carbon revolution and a very, very interesting de-risking tool to unlock that private sector investment at the scale that we need. So even there is a pre-sale possibility on these kind of carbon credits that we have been talking a bit about debt for nature swap, which are nothing else than a pre-sale. And this pre-sale encompassing the blue carbon, including the blue carbon in the value and in the potential, makes it a framework which is quick and easy to implement with a much more attractive mechanism that is already been done before. So how can SIDS can be empowering it? It's not only about adopting it and being part of the governance, but also, as Sarita said before, and I completely agree with it, blue carbon is not nowhere in the Paris Agreement. SIDS have the possibility to push for a motion dedicated for this, to have a new chapter in those Paris Agreement to make it flies very quick in harmony all around the world. And such a new chapter could be titled Blue Carbon and Green to Blue, like interconnection between the blue and green carbons frameworks. That way, we can move quicker, faster, stronger all together. Again, such a platform needs to be global to make the power that we need. So thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frederic. Certainly very complex, but we can see that you master the financial ecosystem. Probably we need another panel on that. Thank you, because I really think you have an important vision. So looking forward to continue advancing on it and make it from vision to reality, with SIDS on board and many others. I now want to invite Mr. St. Clair Solain. He's Director of Policy and Planning at the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Transportation and Investments here in Antigua and Barbuda. Sorry, Antigua. I keep saying Antigua, but so its question is on finance, but on today's finance. So I'm curious to understand how your ministry is using some of the tourism earnings to improve sustainability and resiliency. I mean, are you investing tourism revenue in transformation?
You know, Virginia, I would like to jump on a soapbox and shout at the top of my voice. A big percentage of the receipts are invested back into sustainability and resilience of the tourism industry. But unfortunately, I cannot say that. And I would go on to tell you why it might not be the best thing to say either. Antigua and Barbuda, we see about 1 million tourists a year. The population is 100,000. The ADR about 300, middle to high income resorts. Cruise passengers, which make up 700K, spends about $76 per passenger. So clearly, that's a lot of money to be shared among hundreds of $1 million to be shared among a population of 100,000, no? If you look at the figures. However, for every dollar that we make, we only retain 25 cents of every dollar. Major investments, one of the deal breakers is permission to repatriate 100% of profits. Now, if we look in the context of sustainable tourism and investing in it, just as my friend Mr. Newman would have said, people, academia especially, look at sustainable tourism as co-opted into continual economic growth, which further degrade the environment and drive social inequalities. As a matter of fact, the term greenwashing now is used when you open your mouth and talk about sustainable tourism. We at the ministry, we look at these things closely, look at some of them as the buzzword, the industry buzzword, you throw them around. Somewhere circa 2017, regenerative tourism started to raise, somewhere in South America, I started reading about it first. Technically, it's a term that was borrowed from natural sciences, from the natural sciences. Hence, it's very difficult to define it in a social science context. However, what we have done at the Ministry of Tourism is to take out attributes out of it, distill them, and embed it into our program. So what we have, you'll not see us having a sustainable tourism standalone project because it's sort of a nebulous. So what you see, regenerative tourism, which part we distill. For example, you would brag, we have 100 million tourists come through. That is not a good KPI in our context. A better KPI, what percentage of residents are benefiting from that arrivals, okay? And if the percentage is high, the locals would be further driven to protect the environment because their very survival is linked to the tourist industry. So hence we drive the sustainability from that end. Economic value, we only retain 25 cents. We are still at that level in the Maslow chart of barely providing for healthcare, education, infrastructure. So to think of sustainability as we would need to go further up the Maslow chart before we get there, okay? Number of full-time jobs and part-time jobs that this project is going to provide, 400 jobs. But they're not telling you these 400 jobs at minimum wage, your landscaper, your dishwasher, minimum wage. So what we are looking at, number of middle management and upper management jobs. That's the KPI that we want to read, not 400 jobs and on their breath you know it's minimum wage jobs. Waste production. How much of this waste production you're actually using as a accommodation? Number of tourism businesses. Good, number of tourism businesses, but how much of that number is locally owned? Because once they're not locally owned, it would never be sustainable. And it would always be profit driven. A problem, you pull up stakes and you go somewhere else. When it's locally owned, you have nowhere to go. So you see where the regenerative tourism comes in our context. Everyone in this room can interpret regeneration tourism as they choose to, because it's a borrowed science. So feel free to, in our mind, that's how we interpret it. Size of development is going to cover 30 acres. When you finish that development, what percentage of divergence is there from the approved plans from the Development Control Authority, knowing that the government would not knock down that property once it's built? So you have it there. In these small countries where we fight for investment, you would not do something like that. It would be counterproductive. And by the time they finish with you on social media, if you see another investor again, you'll be lucky. Okay? So we look at sustainability not as an isolated approach, but we put it into regenerative tourism, which drives resiliency, which come around, it's looped. So where you drive tourism and it's co-opted, it's caught down there by the regenerative tourism. Once it's caught by the regenerative tourism, we build resilience into it. So it's this loop that's going on, and I pray to God that it doesn't become a favorite buzzword and people try to understand what regenerative tourism is, because it's far more effective in our context. It allows us to develop better KPIs in managing the industry than, say, traditional. I'm providing 500 jobs, I'm building a 30-acre resort with golf course and all of that. And then in the end, it consumes the very water we have to drink. So, you see, we have to look at this whole thing. So having said all that, we really don't make sustainable tourism a budgeted item where we have programs and projects to support it, because we think it's a concept that is not going very fast. Thank you.
Thank you. We learned, like, one of the outcomes of this conference is actually the establishment of the Excellence Center, which, as far as I understand, is also going to work on data. It would be fantastic to gather the necessary data for measuring the sustainability of tourism, so that you can really understand those three pillars that you were evoking. Last February, actually, at the UN in New York, all the statistical offices of the world met and agreed on a strategic framework to measure exactly that, beyond tourism GDP, so changing the way we look at success. So it would be fantastic to actually see how the Excellence Center could work on that, because once you have the data, you can really negotiate with those wanting, not to leave the revenue in the country. So we are coming to an end, colleagues, but I just want to do a quick round of last thoughts from everyone, but you gotta be quick, okay? Otherwise we don't have time. So basically final reflections, because, and I'm looking at you, Mr. Cocker. It's challenging. We've heard a lot of concepts, and all of those I know are part of the frameworks that you described in the beginning. So how are you dealing with collaboration across all your members to implement all these, such a diverse scope of elements that we need to address when transforming? Please remember to be short.
Thank you. That's a very good question, because I think in terms of the Pacific, we've got so many member countries in this case that come together. But I think the important thing in terms of the challenges that we face in this case, particularly I'll just name 4 of them, is basically political buy-in. And I'm talking about the countries have already made their commitments, but across and within governments. In this case, and there also sectoral integration amongst themselves, because people are still working in silos, in this case within the Pacific. Resource challenges, there's a significant gap in terms of technical and financial resources. And I also think that in terms of development partners, they need to be more innovative in funding approaches in this case. Things work and good examples in the Pacific. We're not used to borrowing things, because when you give, you don't get it back. So when you borrow in the Pacific, it's like you're giving the funds and you'll never get it back again. So there's a lot of challenges in terms of paying back loans in this case. So those are key challenges in terms of regional collaboration that we face. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dianil, may I ask you, because your participatory approach has, you mentioned it, then Paloma referred to it. What did it take, that participatory approach? Can you give us a bit more details? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy.
No, it is not. But I think it's tied to what we've been doing with respect to the creation of a destination management organization. It is a collaborative approach. And one of the things I noted when we hosted the last workshop, when we asked for feedback from the participants, one of the key things that kept coming up was the need for more collaboration. So it was pleasing for us to see that people are recognizing, if we are going to do this and be successful, we need to work together more. And a lot of times we emphasize public-private sector partnerships, but very often we have challenges with public sector working with public sector. There are gaps. And so we need to work together closer within the public sector, especially when we are going to be talking about encouraging the private sector to partner with us. So we have gotten the participatory approach. It was challenging in terms of getting people. And one of the challenges I noted, while people would not necessarily come to the workshop, they're quite happy to have you visit them on their own. So they still haven't gotten the message that we feed off of each other. When you're at the workshop, you can feed off of somebody else's idea. You can benefit from a best practice that is shared by someone else who is present. We are still working with them. It's the same thing while we work on the sustainability charter. We are trying to show them that this is one way you can tell your story. Because what I've realized is recently, and it's getting more and more this way, people are asking what's in it for me. And so we have to demonstrate to them that by doing this together, the country benefits, but you as an individual person, organization, will also stand to benefit as a result.
Thank you, Dianil. Sorry, colleagues, but we're running really short on time. So I'm going to go back to you, St. Clair, since you shared very important points. Basically, we heard about the challenges. So what key elements should we start embracing for transitioning to a regenerative approach? Reducing leakage?
First of all, reducing leakages by looking at the traditional KPIs versus regenerative KPIs. So you measure what matters to the destination, not what matters primarily to the investor. That's my first issue. Quickly, I've heard non-private sector involvement mentioned 48 times in 3 hours, non-community 42 times in 3 hours, inadequate financing 63 times in the 3 hours, 2 workshops, and I just did a quick look, and from a regression analysis, our problems are like this on the chart between 2014 and 2024. So I'd hasten to say the next SIDS will be 2034 if we remain above water. And I hope that these will be reduced, the non-private sector, non-community, and inadequate finances, and we start to see that linear line going somewhere down south. That's my parting shot.
Thank you, Mr. Soling. Dear all, you've been fantastic. I'm sorry we could stay for hours, days discussing, but we can't. So I just invite you to scan the QR code and receive information about Glasgow Declaration. We also meet online, global roundtables. You can see fabulous speakers like the colleagues here today and many more that we have in the global network. So please don't forget to do that before you leave the room. For the speakers, also, please don't leave because we need to take a photo. And now I'm really honored to invite, once again, Excellency Honorable Charles Fernandez. He's going to help me close this fantastic meeting.
Thank you, Virginia. By the way, we have the same name.
A big applause for Virginia.
You didn't allow me. I was going to say she has the same name. That's why she was so great.
Exactly. The Fernandez, you know.
Yeah, not the Virginia.
No.
By the way, a little bit of housekeeping. I was sent a note to say that the reason why the room is warm is to remind us all about global warming. Okay, I want to thank the panel, and I think they deserve another round of applause. Really informative, and I think that we all got a different perspective, and everybody seemed to be very knowledgeable in their own discipline. A few notes I made. I noted the good minister from Seychelles mentioned about the limit he put on the amount of tourists. And that is something that we are working at actually in Antigua, the whole danger of over-tourism. And so that is something we are now putting together to see what that number should be. And you are right, when you limit it, you're actually able to charge more. Exactly. Because it becomes a premium, like business class in a plane. Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing. I also was happy to see the whole aspect of blue carbon, because that is something that I think we need. It's not easy for us to protect the mangroves and the seabed and everything, and say, no, we can't put another hotel here because we want to protect it, but then we're not getting any of the benefits that the rest of the world, including ourselves, of course, are getting. So I'm glad to hear that, and I hope that we can really look to monetize that, because that will encourage it
we have started
even further.
with Antigua.
Exactly, we did start, and we hope to see all the money flowing soon. Our colleague from St. Kitts mentioned the whole aspect about public-private partnerships and in terms of discussions, correct? What I can say is in Antigua in 2022, we did the Vision 2032, a 10-year plan. But our plan didn't stop with just the major stakeholders. We got the youth, the nurses, the unions, the opposition. By the way, they didn't respond. It wasn't intentional. It was beyond their capacity. And the opposition, the hoteliers, the environment department, the vendors, taxi operators, because it's important to get that plan in place for 10 years, bearing in mind that governments change. Of course, we have some of us change every other year, some of us change every 6 months. But it's important for us to get that kind of mandate by everyone. You know, so I just wanted to say that it's a good start, and you are right that you quite often have to change or tweak your plan. But the idea is to have something grounded there, so if another Minister of Tourism comes in that is not as dynamic, then you will have a situation where their feet will be held to the fire, because you have a plan that everybody participates. I think also to note that out of our plan came the key word that came out of it wasn't regenerative, it wasn't around then, sustainability. So I just want to again thank the panel and thank the audience and for staying here even in the heat of the moment. So once again, thank you very much, Virginia, for a great job.
Thank you very much, Minister. A pleasure. Okay, so we're done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I shake your hand.
Okay, look at the camera.
Yes, that's a good one, I think.
Excellent.
Bravo, congratulations.
Thank you.
Looking
Thank you.
forward for the
Yes.
future. Okay, second copy. One for you, one for us.
Yes.
So you can WhatsApp me.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Let me take a picture.
Bravo. And super.
Cheers, one more.
Yes.